Welcome to Conversations and Coffee, where we have conversations that are authentic, lighthearted, and purposeful. Our conversations will be engaging. You will hear from industry experts that will have you saying, "Whoa, wow, I didn't know that." Join us because it's all about you, your loved ones, and anyone who want to stay informed and, of course, living your best life.
Yeah.
I've had those conversations with, many of our clients when they're trying to make decisions. And what I've noticed, and I just want to put that out here as for our eavesdroppers as well, is what I've noticed is when you have different siblings and they all have different goals that they want to have for their parents, in addition to their own careers that may help them with making these decisions, they use that to their advantage. Because some of them may be attorneys or, that will be the POA. So an attorney, a family member that's an attorney, they could be the POA for making decisions. Then you may have another person that may be in the health field where they are then making those decisions. So everybody has a part to play. I think sometimes when you come into a family conflict is when no one knows their part. And I will say that personally, with me having two siblings, and me being the oldest, and as we were trying to make a couple decisions about, our parents, it was in the beginning, well, I'm the oldest, so this is how it's going to be. And then that caused a conflict between us. So then we had to, step back, relook at it. And one of my sisters is a nurse. So we said, well, you will make all the health decisions for our parents because you are the nurse. You kind of know what health things they may need. Me being also an educator, a leader, do a lot of research. I am going to be, that POA that takes care of all of those things. Then I have another sister that's all about budgeting. So she will take care of all of the finances. So if everybody really have a path or a goal that they are going to do for the parents, I think it makes it better. But if you don't, then you need a person like you to say, hey, this would be better for you to do this part for your parents or so on. Is that some of the conversations?
I actually love what you said because you talked about people having a specialty, and in your family it worked because you covered the legal, you covered the healthcare. In a lot of families, even though you have a specialty, those people are biased to what they know. I mean, an attorney might think attorney this way, and you also, it's so different when you have skin in the game, when it's your own loved one there. So, but your family came to an agreement, hey, we'll use our strengths. That might not work in every family because I may not have healthcare experience, but I definitely want to say in what's medical because my neighbor, for whatever reason. So conflict tip number one, often when we're making difficult decisions, we think we have two. It's this or this, right? Like I can either she does it or he does it. And what mediation does is be an and. Well, how do we make it this and this? Or rather than this or this, what's on the spectrum in between that's possible? That can maybe, if you put a slide on that spectrum, this is where one person's position is, and aren't we all so sure of our rightness? Right? And this person is so sure of theirs and they're over here. So how can we move that to include both of their points for even a better outcome?
Okay. So I guess I probably just did the clean way of
yours
doing
worked. It worked for you. Hey, that's fine. Different things are going to work for different people. And I think that's a beautiful way of doing it because it worked for you all. It's for some families, it's not even easy to give a yes.
Yes.
You know, like even if it looks obvious, I'm not going to let you be the right one.
Yeah. That is so true.
Right?
So true.
So we have to figure out a way that it's not about right and wrong. It's about the best care we can give to someone else. It's not about paying somebody back for the past. It's about moving to a better future.
Mm-hmm. So moving to the next question, if you get to that point, like you just said, you're just going to say no just because you have some hurt feelings. What if you are in a session with a family and this is going on and you cannot resolve the issue with this family? What are next steps?
I'm going to tell you, that's such a good question. So almost always, when I look at these people who maybe can't stand each other, maybe they haven't talked to each other in a decade, when I sit there with them, I almost always see two very, very good people. Like I just want to hug them, stuck in their pain. And haven't we all been there, right? So it is possible to build some kind of a bridge. It might not be the perfect outcome, but it can be a better outcome. Quite frankly, and I say this because it's been my experience, the only time that it can't move forward is, for me, if there's just a severe personality disorder. So in the event, we have something called the BATNA and the WATNA, the best alternative to a negotiated agreement. This is legal stuff, and the worst alternative. So if you don't come to some kind of agreement, what's the best outcome you can get? And what's the worst thing that can happen? So I'm working with a family now who's been in conflict their entire lives. And for them, the reason they came together was because they're looking at the worst alternative to them trying to come together. And that is that somebody else takes over, some outside person takes over the decisions for their family member. And because, so that's their motivation to stay. So that would be my answer to that. If it doesn't work out, there's a lot of things that can happen. One is you spend the rest of your life, carrying that or separated from that. It moves into the legal realm, which if you think you had a fracture before, there's nothing like the legal system to create, irrevocable fracture.
Yes.
And those are the kind of things you look at for why stay. Now, some people can live with that, but almost always, Joy, always there's at least some progress. Yeah, there's some clarity that comes to everybody. There's at least now I know I've tried. At least now I know more options than I had before. At least I know more about myself and who I want to be in the conflict.
Oh, yeah, that is so true. Oh, just thinking about it just kind of makes me sad when you think about, if you're not able to come up with something, but like you said, it's a best case scenario and it's a worst case. And the worst is having someone that's not even in your family make a decision for your family. That is devastating for me, to even have to even consider something like that. But of course, sometimes you have to do what is best. And that worst case scenario is what's best. Yes.
You know what the big switch is going to be, Joy? We are in a culture right now where if we don't like something, very often we threaten lawsuit. Right? Which has given the legal system too much power. Now we do this, and then it's like when we threaten divorce, it's like, I don't have any other tools in my toolbox. I'm throwing in the atom bomb, right? And we don't know where that path takes us. But again, somebody else, a judge or the attorneys, make a decision for the rest of your life. So if we don't give power to them and accept, this is going to be challenging, but I'm going to work through it. And I can tell you that mediation is challenging because you're talking about things that are difficult to talk about, but it's way less challenging for most people than going into the legal system. And there are times when it does require the legal system, especially around abuse. And, there are just circumstances. Again, I'm not an attorney, so I can't speak to those, but I know I reference people if I feel like it's more of a legal matter and they're grounded in that. Is it a referral to attorney? If it's mental health issues that also need to be addressed, it's a referral to a psychologist, a psychiatrist, a counselor. Sometimes it's just figuring out where our best help is.
Mm-hmm. And so can you put a time limit? Because my next question would be, what is the amount of time spent in mediation? Can you put a time limit to it?
Yeah, I can. And the answer is it depends, which is the mediator's favorite answer. I'll tell you a little bit about the process, and that'll help. I don't bring people together who are in conflict. Oh, let's all get in a room and duke it out, because I'm not that brave.
They gotta duke it out for real.
That's right. So I spend time with each person and hear their story, understand what their concerns are, understand what their hurts are, understand what's standing in the way, understand their vision for what they want. And then when I'm doing that, I'm identifying what problems need to be brought out in mediation for us to actually talk about. Mm-hmm. Also, in doing that, when people feel like somebody hears them and understands them and validates them and isn't judging them, mm-hmm. they're more open. Like I'd let go of this rock I'm carrying that's keeping me closed. Mm-hmm. I used to say, Joy, that almost always in mediation, whatever kind, they'd be like, he's a narcissist, she's a narcissist. Like that always happened. I'm like, well, I'm going to listen and hear two people that make sense, and I could see where they'd be if I were in their shoes. Mm-hmm. But the truth is, all of us are never so narcissistic as when we're in pain, because when we're in pain, it's all about us. Mm-hmm. We can't, in that state, hear and understand other people. Mm-hmm. Like it's just, we have to get out of that state somehow in order to be willing to do that. Mm-hmm. So that's just one of the bonuses of mediation and the pre-mediation is to get people out of that state. Then bringing them together. I've had people resolve things in, 1 or 2 meetings. I've had people with deeply inset stuff that I've worked with for months. Mm-hmm. It's not an hour at a time like counseling. It's, multi-hours. So usually about 4 hours. And then people have had enough, 3 hours to 4 hours. It organically goes that time, whether I'm meeting with people.
Session?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's just organic that it's usually 3 to 4 hours. It boggles my mind. You unpack stuff, you see it, you start putting it together, and then you start a vision for the future. And that's just kind of how it goes. So I do have people that come in after a couple times. Depends on how many problems, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, I got a plan. We're going to move forward. And I don't hear back from them for a long time till the next conflict they get stuck in.
Okay.
I always tell people conflict tip number 2. Life is an experiment. Mm-hmm. Every single moment is one we've never been in before. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we're going to get it right, that next step. And sometimes it's an experiment we're going to miss. And when we miss, we all want to point our fingers going, look what you did. But the truth is, how would we know? Like we're all doing our best. So for mediation, it's like, this is what might work for now, but be willing, I said this earlier, to revisit it and renegotiate it when you get stuck, when it doesn't work for someone, when the situation changes.
Okay. And that takes me back to, I think, what we were talking about earlier. And I think you mentioned it in the beginning, the way the conversation, because I've been through counseling before. I've had counseling before. And the way you are now describing kind of how those sessions go. What if someone said, well, to me, mediation is just counseling. Let me just go see a counselor. Mm-hmm. What would be your response to that?
Some people do go to counselors for family conflict. Mm-hmm. People ask me that all the time. I hear mediators say, I'm not a counselor. Mm-hmm. I think that means my expertise is not in mental illness, but we share a space for that, and that is helping resolve conflict. What I have a counselor, Joy, and she's my one of my dear friends, and she's my muse. And I think we all need someone to help us see something we can't see. So But I also have counselors refer to me because I do families and bigger groups, and maybe they don't, it's individual. But I always say, counseling spends a lot of time going backwards, a lot of time, and it's an hour. And when you unpack for 50 minutes, your hour, you don't get to necessarily put the pieces together. So I really like that we have time to unpack and put something else together. And then I would say the best thing about us is, while we have to acknowledge the past, we are about creating a better future. And with that agreement for next steps to create a better future, not a final agreement, but maybe just how we're going to handle this now. That's something counseling really doesn't do. Yeah.
I like how you just said that. Mediation is about what you're handling now and the future. Counseling is about, unpacking what has happened to get to your present.
Right.
Oh, I like that. So great.
Yeah. And we have to unpack. I mean, for some mediators don't want to go back. They're like, oh, well, let's talk about the problem now. That's an option. But as long as that hurt is sitting there untouched, you're not going to get to the point, your best point. You're not going to get to your best end point.
Okay. And when they're getting ready to make the decision, say, okay, Miss Kimberly is someone that we want to be our mediator for our family. What does that agreement look like? I know we talked about it depends on how long, but is it an agreement that is signed? And what does that look like for a person when they're getting ready to sign that?
Yeah, so that depends too. The agreement is identifying the issues first, identifying the problems, and then how do we want to move forward? So when we come into agreement with that, I do write it up and I do have them sign it. The confidentiality agreement, which is called the agreement to mediate, I have a sample of that on my site. You can actually Google agreement to mediate and see other people's version of that as well. But that's around the confidentiality, that's around the neutrality, that is legally binding. For us, it's a prototype. So you can take it to court and say, well, it's private as well. So the confidentiality thing, it depends, I think, on your state, how much that's regarded. It's not seen as a legal contract unless it's, maybe within a court system, but mine is not. But people tend to honor on their own an agreement they have, and having it in writing helps, because I can have conversation with you and think this is what we're agreeing on. And, we walk away with two different things. It gives people a guideline for that. And honestly, if people didn't want, I work for you. So if you're all like, we want to solve this, but we don't want it in writing, that's fine. You're working to resolving it however you want to do it.
Okay. Well, that's good to know as well, because I think sometimes with the agreement, it really solidifies, what you're going to accomplish. Right. And you can kind of go back and look at it. Like if you went through a session and you was like, and then you go back and look at this. Okay, this is what we're trying to resolve and get to a solution. Then it kind of brings you back to why you are there.
That's exactly right. Beautifully said. I try to give a summary, email folks afterwards, kind of a summary. We sum it up while we're there, and then I like to send them so that they do have that, reference point to see where they've gone in the time just that we spent together.
Okay, and so that brings me to my next point. We've talked about elder care mediation and how to go about that. Let's talk about your book. Your book is titled How to Live Forever, a guide to writing the final chapter of your life. Tell us about this guide and why did you decide to write it?
No, that's awesome. So it's a guide to writing the final chapter of your life story. And the reason it is that is, oh my goodness, I get a little bit emotional. So I'm a 19-year-old registered nurse sitting with my first patient who is dying, and her family couldn't be there. And I just thought everyone should have someone present in that moment. So I'm sitting with her, and this vision comes into my head of her as a book. And I'm wondering about the stories that she has. I'm wondering about the things she hasn't shared. I'm wondering what she's taking with her that she's not seen, I'm just wondering about her. And I'm picturing this book closing. And throughout my entire very long career, I always still saw that book vision. Mm-hmm. So I believe we're writing our story every moment, everything we do. We're writing our story. We're writing how people will remember us. And I think that we plan for so much of our life, but not this chapter. So taking my nursing career, culminating it with, or tying it into what I experience as a mediator, knowing that if we're proactive on our legal decisions, our healthcare decisions, even our celebration of life decisions, it makes all the difference in the world. I could tell stories, but it would take a while, but just wonderful stories of people who've made these decisions and the peace that they've had afterwards. And then to literally write your story, to somehow leave who you are for the rest of your family. Mm-hmm. I have a vase that my grandmother left, and inside is a note, says, "This is from my great grandmother." That note means more to me than anything. Yes. Because knowing our story ties our past to our present and then links it to our future. So I have tips for leaving your story. We have phones now. We can audio and video someone asking them questions that I put.
But still, I think when I saw that, I was like, "Oh God, how to live forever." And the thought of just how to live forever, I'm like, okay, now you're saying a guide. So the person that is at the golden years, they're able to now write down those stories or those recipes, because that is so important. I'm going to tell you a little story about my grandfather. My grandfather could cook the best sweet. It's called sweetbread. I'm a Southern girl, and it's called sweet cornbread. He could cook the best sweet cornbread, and everyone loved it when he cooked that. Every time we had some type of a gathering. So when he was, passing away, those things did not come up. It was just at the time he's passing away. Let's just, hear the things that he's talking about now and not the things that he had done or made an impact. And so one day I was in the kitchen because I'm a baker. I love to bake. And I said, I want to make Granddaddy's sweetbread. And I called my grandma at the time when she was living to ask her about the recipe. She didn't have the recipe. I called my mom. I said, "Do you know the recipe that Granddaddy did?" She didn't have the recipe. I looked it up on Google to say, okay, what is sweetbread? I know somebody got to have this recipe, and it has to taste like my Granddaddy's. I found a recipe, but did it taste like Granddaddy's? It did. And so those are things that could have been written down. We could have had some type of guide to help us to know this was something important to our family. This sweetbread, even though it's a simple recipe, probably, I don't know. I still don't know how to make it, and I'm a very good baker. But that is something I cannot get the taste of when my granddaddy did it. So it's lost. And it's something that we now don't have. And that is the sad thing about it, because that could have been something, or using this guide to help us to know, what Granddaddy did do, and how it impacted our lives. I haven't read this, but I do know that I am going to get it because when I saw God, I know that is something that I think I want to even have for my own children. Even though I have boys and they may not even want to bake, but maybe their wives want to bake something that their mother did, and I can have those recipes for them. So I love that title of your book.
Yeah, our stories live forever. Yeah. You know, our stories are our legacy, whether it's a recipe or not. And I want to say, Joy, like your story about your grandfather gave me chills, because when you speak of your grandfather, he's living on. Mm-hmm. You know, he's not forgotten. You're sharing him with us. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Here today. Imagine what it would be like for him to know that he was on a podcast now. Mm-hmm. So it's a way of it, and it just happens through stories that we keep people alive.
Yes,
and honor the life that they had. For me, it's really about honoring. I think I have a part in there that talks about the journey that our ancestors went through to get where they are. Mm-hmm. You know, to know that is to continue having a legacy that, again, ties the past with the future.
Yeah. And another story, I know I'm going on, but another story is my grandmother, which is, has passed away. But they know that I'm a person that I keep everything. I'm that person. I'm so organized when it comes to things. So I keep everything. And my grandmother gave me a picture of my great grandmother, like 4 greats, a picture of her with my grandmother and all her siblings. I wrote their name underneath it. And now that my grandmother has passed, I pulled that out of my safe. And I actually showed my son a couple days ago. It's like, look, if this is my 4 greats, this is your, 5th. Look at this picture and then look at grandma, which is his great grandma. Look at my grandma signature, because at the time that she was living, signatures weren't as good as they are now. And to actually see her handwriting on there.
That's beautiful.
That's just like, I love this. So eavesdroppers, if you are listening today and you want to live forever, as Kimberly so gracefully put it, buy this guide, because I think this would help with that process.
I want to say, Joy, that I forgot what I was going to say. Cut. Oh my goodness! I forgot. Completely went out of my head.
Is it about the guide helping people to continue with that process?
It is, but I can't remember what it was. I'm glad you have a husband who cuts.
Yes. So let's move on to our final aha moments. Can you think of any final aha statements that we should know when it comes to mediation or picking a mediator?
I think we covered everything, I think, on that we can. I know what I was going to say earlier. So when we talk about end of life and making these decisions, when people who are older come to their family and say, let's talk about this, we tend to be like, no, you're going to be fine. And the truth is, bad news, we're going to die.
Yes.
It's really not bad news, because in my book, I say, this is a life cycle and we pass on to the next generation. That's our job. That's why we're here. And the thing about living longer, because of advances in medicine, is it's taking longer and it's harder to die. Mm-hmm. So everything has a price, right? Mm-hmm. So while dying involves loss, mediating is helping to walk that fine line between grief and hope, right? Mm-hmm. And that's hope for the future, hope for what you're doing is the best while you're grieving it at the same time. You really just can't have a life without grief. It's part of life. Yeah. So to answer your question, I think the whole thing I'm going to sum up a favorite line of mine from Atul Gawande, who wrote Being Mortal.
Mhm.
And I always tell people that if you never read if you're going to read one more book, don't read mine, read Atul Gawande's Being Mortal. It's a powerful book. He's a physician who talks about end of life and how we do end of life caregiving and how we got to where we are and how the medical system is structured in decision making and the legal system to some degree. But he says our ultimate goal, after all, is not a good death. It's a good life all the way to the end. So be willing to have these conversations because it helps make a better ending, not just for the person we're losing, but for you moving forward. It is a gift of legacy.
Mm-hmm. Very much so. Thank you. Thank you for that quote. So I want to sum up our conversation today by having some fun.
Okay.
Let's get into what I call 5-second thoughts. Your answers, they are more personal than professional, but it can be both. And I want you to try to think of a word that pops into your mind, and you can repeat the statement as I say it so it flows better for you. But let's get started. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Today I'm
grateful.
All right. Our conversation was
beautiful.
It was, and we have so many gems in there that I believe our eavesdroppers are going to take, and I'm taking for myself, for my future self, definitely. Coffee is
my gasoline.
Most people.
Oh, wow.
I love
connection.
Yes, connection, networking, being authentic. Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. When I laugh
differently. So I just want to do your 5-second thing here to say my family gives me so much grief because I never know what laugh is going to come out. Like I must have different laughs for different humors, but I just never know what laugh is going to come out.
Same here. I have a joking type of family that's always joking, and I've never been that type of person, but they've made me that type of person. Yeah. I am really
a learner.
Yes, me too. Always learning, always. My personality is
multifaceted.
What you do, definitely. In your bio, you stated you have 5 grown children and 4 grandchildren. So repeat and answer this. My family.
Oh, my family, and I just picture a heart. I love my family so much. But we're all different. I would say my family is all different and still connected.
Yeah. Oh, that is good.
Oh, we struggle. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I've had to put on my mediator hat. I have to trade it in on my mom hat sometimes so I can be a neutral person in that. But I mean, it's hard. It's hard.
Yes, definitely. But I love that. Different, but still connected. Yes. Mm-hmm. Grandma life is?
High energy.
Especially what you say in lively ones.
I turn into a child when I'm with my grandchildren. I'm playing baseball, I'm playing kickball, and I'm like, I'm 62. What am I doing?
Yes.
It's a chance to play again. So I like that.
Yes, definitely. I love what I do because
it gives hope.
Yes.
And tools for a better tomorrow. And because of the people I meet. I love the people I meet.
Yes, very much so. Thank you so much, Kimberly, for being a part of Conversations and Coffee. It is always a great experience when we can learn more to help others live their best life. And today, my hope is that our eavesdroppers have learned a lot through your knowledge. So one more thing, eavesdroppers, you know that I'm a conversationalist by heart and an educator by trade. You can learn more about best conflict solutions by visiting Kim's website. She has articles and she has the latest news concerning conflict resolution. I'll put the link in the comments below. And also, I would love to keep this conversation going. We are ready to tackle questions and comments about mediation, whether it's for yourself or your loved one. See you next time on Conversations and Coffee with Dr. Joy.